Alright, so we just did the top 10 worst Mario Party 5-8 minigames. Now it's time to check out the best. This is Dirtbag's Top 10 Best Mario Party Minigames Volume 2. Kind of a duh moment. Actually, I suck at writing this stuff sometimes. Oh well, let's get into it. So from Mario Party 9 to 5, Donkey Kong has been deemed unfit to play the game himself. Instead, he was either bumped up in rank as a foil to Bowser Spaces, or downgraded to NPC. You can take your pick on that one. But nonetheless, Donkey Kong became a very helpful character for a while, allowing players to win coins or stars from a little range of minigames that are dedicated to him. Usually they came in a someone versus DK game, or everyone tries to play and collect bananas that would be redeemed for coins. And to be honest, it's not that bad of a deal for losing a main Mario Party character. But out of all of them, I feel the best one hands down was the minigame called Jumpman. It's an obvious reference to the game that started it all, but it's a minigame where you race DK in a round that plays like Donkey Kong. You can't go wrong with that. There's just something kind of awe-inspiring about racing DK to the top as you jump over barrels. It's probably nostalgia pulling at me, but fuck it, I'll roll with it. Now, there is a bit of a problem with this minigame as it is a Donkey Kong game, as they're meant to be really easy. I mean, like, seriously, if you lose this, I think you're setting yourself up for huge ridicule if you classify yourself as a gamer. But despite difficulty being a flaw, it's a nice celebration for the roots of not only Donkey Kong, but Mario himself. Good for you, whoever thought of this one. This was actually pretty brilliant. Have you ever been in a situation where you're walking behind a somewhat slow motherfucker who's just lost in their own little world, and because of it, they aren't paying attention to their surroundings or where they're going? And then every time you try to get around them, you can't because they somehow keep walking in front of you? And then you want to punch them in the back of the skull for being a fucking dickhead? But then you probably feel a little bad for thinking that because you know you're better than that? Maybe, kind of, not really because they fucking deserve it? I think this was the inspiration of this puzzle minigame, because that's exactly what you do. Deck Goombas in the fucking face and make them move out of your way. It's kind of barbaric when you think about it, but it leads to ingenious gameplay. The goal is to simply make it to the top floor of the hotel, but Goombas are blocking your path, so you get to release some pent-up anger and punch them out of the way. The trick is, though, you have to punch them in a certain way to clear a path, or else you're not going anywhere and you'll have to retry from scratch. When it comes to puzzle minigames, I've never been the biggest fan, mainly because they've either been Tetris ripoffs or questionnaires, which in either case they come off as pretty lazy and forgettable. But in my opinion, Hotel Goomba is the best example of having a really clever puzzle game not even feel like one. And this is when you know you have a really good puzzle game. Who would ever thought punching Goombas would actually be pretty tricky? Well, except for Mario 64 when you try and punch them instead of... I wouldn't recommend that. I think one of the more well-known minigames of the N64 Golden Era was Platform Peril, a minigame that in a lot of ways was very much rooted in Mario's heritage, platforming from point A to point B. If anything, it was a bastardized example of how to explain a 2D platformer is really, but it was still fun and left its mark, especially when it was one of the few minigames that made a return in Mario Party 2. And while there has been a few other examples of precision platforming minigames over the years, the one I think that was the best homage to Platform Peril is 8's Sick and Twisted. As you can see, the gameplay is nearly identical. You and your opponents have to jump from platform to platform and try and make it to the end while dodging bullet bills. What I like about Sick and Twisted over Platform Peril is that there's a lot more interaction with players. Back then, your best chance of winning was simply run and jump straight. Here, the platforms are a lot more abstract, allowing everyone to be all over the place as you move forward, which lets it be a little bit more chaotic as you end up bouncing on other players, hindering their movement, or possibly making you miss your mark and overshooting it. In fact, it's surprisingly easy to miss the spinning platforms here. It's one of those situations where it looks mind-numbingly easy, yet it can be very tricky. But considering this game comes from the start of the let's jerk our wee-wee era, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, like, a lot fucking worse. But instead, this is one of those more than one person can win minigames, so it can be as simple as just minding your own business and trying to get to the end, or you can be the ultimate asshole and try to fuck everyone over. Damn it! Bowser minigames? In a top 10 best minigames list? The fuck have you been smoking? None of your goddamn business. It's gonna be legal in Canada sometime next year, so shut up. Now, while any sane person will agree that you should avoid Bowser minigames at all costs in normal play, Mario Party 7's Bowser-themed 4-player minigames? Well, they should still be avoided if you can, because really, who likes to lose coins? But if I have to play a Bowser minigame, then I want it to be these ones, because they are actually really fun. They're fast-paced, they're challenging, they're chaotic, but the most interesting thing is, they're fair. Yeah, a Bowser minigame that's fair, let alone 3 of them. fuck kind of world do we live in? Hell, even the single player ones aren't that bad, though they are kind of boring, hence why they're not on the list, but they're still not bad. There's never a time where I feel like the odds are stacked against me. The only obstacles that can get in the way of me not beating any of these are my own incompetence, or the other players, you
hairy Japanese bastards!
These 3 games might catch the casual player off guard when compared to the other minigames difficulty in 7, but anyone who's looking for a bit of a challenge, don't overlook these ones. In minigame mode, fuck these games in normal play. You can never go wrong with a good brawl minigame, and Frozen Frenzy is one of the finest ones going, as it tries to change things up by turning it into a keep-away type of game. So at the beginning of each match, there are 5 crystals that the players must race to grab, and whoever has the most crystals at the end is the winner. But the key thing here is that there's only 5 crystals, and the catch is that the other players can steal the 5 said crystals by beating the shit out of you. Oh, so kid-friendly, Nintendo. What I like about Frozen Frenzy is the fact that even if you're not the most skilled, you still have a chance to win, since it's not like most brawl minigames where if you get knocked out, that's it, you're done. That's not the case here. Here you're given a few ways of playing. Do you try to muscle your way through, collecting the crystals and beating the fuck out of each other? Or do you try to be a sneaky little shit and wait for the crystals to be knocked out of someone so you can swoop in and take it for yourself? Either way, whatever approach you make towards this minigame, it's all very valid, since neither will be a surefire way to victory, as the pressure is constantly on to get most of, or all 5 crystals. But nonetheless, I think it's safe to say that whoever wins this one is gonna get a few bruises from the other people in the room. Maybe a trip to the dentist after? I think so. And when someone gets physically injured by another player, that's when you know you did something right for a minigame. When it comes to 2 versus 2 minigames, the thing that I look out for the most is things like, is this a game that's going to be a true team effort? And more importantly, do the rules feel distinct, or is this just a 4-player minigame that's being forced to have teams? Plus, does the unique rules work and mesh well so you don't feel like you're on the shitty end of the stick? Back in 2015, I talked about torpedo targets and how much you wanted to avoid being a pilot since there was no radar for the targets. Not to mention playing against a computer was bullcrap. Fucking little prick. But for Jump the Gun, the 2 different roles are balanced perfectly. One player has to shoot bullet bills to create a path for their teammate to be able to cross on. This is one of the few minigames where teamwork and knowing your partner's playing habits is key. Is the person jumping competent enough to make the harder jumps you provide for them? Or do you need the shooter to provide a safer path so time isn't wasted trying to make the trickier jumps? The risk versus reward mixed in with the subtle but demanding teamwork makes Jump the Gun, in my opinion, one of the best 2 versus 2 minigames in all of Mario Party. But I said one of the best. Nothing's outdoing Dungeon Duos. And the fact that it wasn't included in Mario Party to top 100 is completely ridiculous, since it's the best minigame of all time! Anyone who says otherwise is just a straight up fucking liar and should be stoned and punched and picked on and some other type of bullying that I wouldn't condone otherwise. Yeah, that's right. I said it. You know what was great as a kid? A good old-fashioned snowball fight. With the right people, of course. Always one of those dickheads in the crowd that want to freeze a snowball so they could give someone a concussion. Fucking assholes. This is why we'd get detention in school for having one. Nothing like ruining a good thing. But as you can see, this 3 versus 1 minigame is exactly that. 2 teams try to beat a last man standing as you attempt to pelt each other with snowballs, and freeze the other players to their doom. You know, after thinking about it, these poor souls go through a lot of crap in these minigames, don't they? Why the hell did Mario and his friends do this again? Oh, because we make them. Yeah, they don't have much of a choice in the matter. Now die for me. Obviously, 3 versus 1 does seem unfair, but with the 4 Ukikis and Shy Guys to help the solo player out, it's surprisingly balanced since the single player gets 4 offensive shields at their disposal, whereas the 3-player team only has to hit the 1 player. That alone would make you think it's completely one-sided, but it honestly isn't. I think the thing I admire most about this minigame is the fact that this is one of those 1 versus 3 games that could have turned out horribly wrong, which majority do, unfortunately. If just one monkey was absent, I think the balance would have been off, which would have turned this minigame into a disaster. But when thought goes into something and is made sure it works properly, well, any minigame could be one of the best. Just a shame that not all of them have as much thought put into them, and I gotta make videos about them. For shame. Button masher minigames have been one of the core archetypes for Mario Party. They've been there since the beginning, and back then they were pretty competent. You can tell they were pretty fleshed out as they still had you doing things as you were button mashing. Perfect examples were the skateboard or minecart minigames. But as the series went on, it's not hard to see that many were nearly as thought out as the examples I just brought up. Now, it's not to say that I hate the more simple button masher minigames, as in the end they are pretty harmless and still pretty fun despite the more simplistic design. Just, they can be pretty forgettable since there are so many simple ones. But if there is one button masher minigame that is the definition of button mashers, then that minigame is button mashers. Yeah, no fancy name puns, no bullshit, just exactly to the point. This minigame, in my opinion, is the button masher minigame, as this is an endurance duel minigame. The goal is to simply outlast your opponent, but the catch is that as time goes by, more bricks fall down for the player, forcing them to mash more buttons. This is easily one of the most tiring minigames in existence. I can get a little pooped out after 10 seconds of mashing one button as fast as I can, but 3 or more? Not to mention it can get tricky with the placement of my fingers? Yeah, that's not an easy task, but despite how tired you might get, this is easily one of the most rewarding button mashers to make you feel like you really accomplished something. And what did you accomplish? Carpal tunnel. This was probably the hardest pick I have ever made for a top 10 or top 5, simply because it's between two minigames that are very similar, but with distinct differences that make them stand out really well on their own. So I'm just taking the easy way and making them both number 2, turning this into a top 11. And why top 11? Because I like to go one step beyond with this Nostalgia Critic reference. And no, it's not a total ripoff in any fashion. Honest.
Ha, you fool. It's already past 11 with those Bowser minigames, you dumbass.
Shut up and get the hell out of here, it ain't your time just yet. That's next video. Until then, shut the fuck up. But seriously though, to leave either of them out would be a disservice. And these minigames are Ranna Getaway for Mario Party 6 and Fun Run for Mario Party 7. Both games have the same goal. It's a 4 vs 4 minigame where everyone races to the end to try and win, as they dodge a bunch of obstacles in their way. The main difference is that Ranna Getaway is more about survival as the 4 of you stumble over each other in debris. But it's set up perfectly as there's just no way to keep to yourself and try and secure an easy win. You will bump into and fight other players, which leads to a very hectic and tense run. Hell, it can be so tense that it's one of the few minigames where it allows more than one player to win. Fun Run, on the other hand, is a straight up obstacle course with some of the most trolling roadblocks ever. I don't care who you are. You fell for this hysterically evil spring that flings you off the road and then you were immediately like, what the fuck? And then probably laughed and laughed and laughed some more because it was so unexpected. Little things like that make Fun Run stand out on top of it being a fun minigame. And any minigame that has platforming elements and also makes me feel like I'm in complete control is always going to be an automatically liked game with me. Both of these games are probably the perfect example of this kind of minigame from the generation of 5 to 8. Well, I think so at least. They're just a lot of fun to play through. So this time around we've talked about button mashers, platformers, puzzles, collectathons, hell, even Bowser minigames in a top 10 best minigame list. Yeah, Bowser minigames in a top 10 best. That's kind of amazing. But there is one style that I haven't talked about that dates back as far as 1998, the beat 'em up minigame. I mean, sure, you wail on Goombas in Hotel Goomba and deck each other in Frozen Frenzy, but what is the best fight-to-the-death minigame of this era? Well, Frozen Frenzy's already here, so that's out. Not to mention that's more of a collectathon anyway. Well, what about Bubble Brawl from 7? Ha! No, probably one of the worst beat-em-up minigames to date. Perhaps Fish Upon a Star from 5? Actually, it was almost number 1, until I discovered Glacial Meltdown. After I finally played this minigame, I had no doubt in my mind that this was the best minigame of its kind. It's not even a competition. Nothing comes close, and in my opinion, it is the best minigame from Mario Party 5 to 8. So what makes Glacial Meltdown number 1? Simple. This is a fight to the death in its purest form. No gimmicks to try and make the match end quicker, no ending in a draw or bullshit like that. If 2 or more players manage to last the 5 minutes it gives you, yeah, it gives you 5 minutes to kill each other. Which for Mario Party, battle minigame or not, that's like an eternity. But it rewards you for enduring through the chaos till the end. That alone makes it the best of its kind. Now, there is technically a gimmick here, and that is Lakitu will throw Buzzy Beetles on the stage in an attempt to harm you. Yeah, again, you heard that right. Buzzy Beetles instead of Spinies. Believe me, it caught me off guard too, but the switch is ingenious. Because as you're shown in the intro, Buzzy Beetles aren't just a hazard, they're a tool to be used towards victory. Now, granted, some people can say it can drag on for too long, but in my opinion, with other human players, this can be one of the most competitive mini-games ever, and will actually have a payoff no matter what the outcome is. Unlike something like Bumper Balls that more times than not will end in a stalemate. Is this original? No. Has it been redone countless times in the 10 plus entries of Mario Party? Without a fucking doubt. But when you're the best of a classic style minigame, then you can't say shit about its greatness. And if you try to, well, everyone's entitled to their opinion even if it's wrong. Yeah, I said it. Come at me with your comments and tell me how wrong I am. I fucking dare you. But Glacial Meltdown is my top pick for this episode. Might not be my all-time favorite, but this one is high up there for me. And there you have it, my top 10 picks for the best and worst minigames from 5 to 8. Do you agree with my picks? Great. You don't? Well, make your own goddamn top 10 video. Until then, you guys have a great night, and I'll catch you in the next episode.